So obviously Rosh Hashana is this week, and I know that not every one of you will be in the synagogue. I will be doing a shortened sermon for the services because obviously the services are shorter. But I wanted to put a regular, a bit longer sermon for all those who'd like to hear a sermon before Rosh Hashana. One of the ideas or feelings that has interested me greatly over the last few months is that of hope. What is hope? And is hope actually something good or something that is unhelpful or even destructive? Did you know that when we talk about opening a Pandora's box, we relate to the myth of Pandora? In the Greek writer Hesiod's works, Pandora opens a box which spreads evil across the world. She then tries to shut the box, and all that is left inside is hope. Here, the hope is not a good thing. It is expectations that will be dashed. It is, in fact, pessimistic. So we are bid not to open up something that may look good to us, but will lead to negative consequences, not to open a Pandora's box. So hope can be irrational, unrealistic, based in fantasy, or it can be based in the real desire for a new and better world. And even if the reality that one prays for seems far away in the distance, that does not preclude a sense of hope that things will work out and that steps can be taken towards a desired goal. As a religious Jew, I base my whole worldview on making and wanting a better world, a world that is kinder, more moral, more cooperative, and more mutually supportive. The idea of wanting a messianic era itself seems quite fantastical on the one hand. But Moses Maimonides wrote, even though it tarries, I will wait for the messianic era each day. In other words, I know that this messianic era will unlikely come right now. So my belief that it will is not realistic and can be destructive. Many have criticized messianic elements of the religious Zionist settler movement for looking at the conquering of the West Bank of the Jordan as a clear messianic sign which drives their desire not to let go of any of the land of Israel. But my belief in the Messiah as a religious Jew, that a messianic era will come one day, the belief in a morally corrected world, a peaceful world, is not necessarily off-piste. It is something that I can believe in and hope for. We, of course, know that the word hope, or tikvah, is central to the national anthem of the state of Israel. We talk about the hope of 2,000 years. It may well have been considered mad in Spain in the 1100s or in Russia in the 1800s to think about returning to the land of Israel. But we are there now with a state that has developed so much over the last 72 years. But the idea of hope goes back to the Jewish Bible and to the Torah itself. Every day from the first day of the month of Elul through Rosh Hashana and up to Shmini Atzeret, we read Psalm 27, a beautiful psalm that frames God as our light and our salvation, the opening words of which are on our parochet, the cover of our ark for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It frames life as full of possible conflicts and abandonment, but that God is always there as a salvation. And it ends by saying, have hope in God, strengthen and make courageous your heart, and have hope in God. Many commentators comment on the repetition of hope in this verse. One such commentator, the Malbim, a 19th century German rabbi, explains that there are two differences between having hope in people and having hope in God. Whereas having hope in people is often filled with pain, hoping in God is something that can strengthen the heart. But secondly, whereas with hope for something worldly, when the thing is achieved, there is no longer a need to hope. With God, the aim of hoping is to become stronger and to continue that hoping. That is why the verse says, hope to God, this will make you stronger and you will be able to continue hoping. I found this point so important. This isn't hoping for some discrete event, hoping that someone will ring me, that someone will apologize to me. That is out of my hands. And either what I want to happen will or won't happen. I will be fulfilled or disappointed, and then will stop needing to hope. It's over. But the second type of hope is more a sort of consciousness. It is a way of feeling. I read a fascinating article recently in the New Statesman called A New Politics of Hope. This title was one I had only heard of before, used by the then Chief Rabbi Sachs in his Haggadah. But using the ideas of the 20th century German thinker Ernst Bloch, the author Lindsay Stonebridge laid out the idea of the not yet conscious, or the forward unconscious. Whereas Freud looked into the traumas and the hauntings of a person's past to understand them, Bloch here looks forward. We are always aiming, even if unconsciously, to shape the future. Bloch talks about the not yet. And this idea is that we will always take steps towards a future utopia. It reminds me of how a Jewish wedding is understood as the building of one brick on the way to the temple. It is a new reality that was not there before. A great example of Bloch's not yet. And it is, at the same time, one step on the way to a dreamed of reality. According to Rabbi Sachs in his book Future Tense, we are the not yet people. Echoing Bloch's work, he writes that Judaism is the voice of the not yet in human civilization. We are all about shaping what is not yet and not being paralyzed by our past traumas, not being stuck in the tragedies of the past. I wonder if the period of the COVID pandemic since last March has unleashed within many of us the possibilities of the not yet. Not for all. For many, the pandemic has brought death, mourning, or long-term illness. For many, it will have affected their livelihood. Young people have lost out on critical experiences and may well find it hard to find jobs at this time, when they would have had so much wanted to move on with their lives. But we cannot ignore how for many this period of time, especially the earlier lockdown period, brought a renewed new love for the natural world, an ability to experiment with basic cooking, newfound relationships with close members, time to exercise thanks to, of course, the amazing Joe Wicks, a greater feeling of connectedness to our neighbors. We came to see how important digital technology is for us to connect and realized how dependent we are on it at the same time. Our houses became destinations for an abundance of deliveries, from toiletries to flour to fruit and vegetables. Finding a Tesco delivery slot became a reason to celebrate. But the big question within all this, for me, is can we hold on to the not yet in the midst of this period of protection from the pandemic. We are hopefully thinking and doing the precautions in order to look after ourselves and those close to us. We are in many ways living in the moment, from day to day or week to week, not being able to look beyond. But can we let our voices be heard about the future that we all want? One that is rid of hatred, one where those who are deprived are given a bigger platform to flourish and live. One that takes steps to protect the environment. One that considers the dangers of coming too close to the wildlife of this world in a profit-based and non-regulated way. The list goes on. And so when God asked Adam, after he had consumed the tree of good and evil, of knowledge of good and evil, Ayeka, where are you? He didn't want from Adam a GPS coordinate. He rather wanted a wake-up call for Adam to take responsibility for his actions and not to run away. And so also with Jonah, who is asked by the sailors on the boat where he goes down to in its bottom and sleeps, to wake up and to call to his God after he, Jonah, has run away from the instruction of God. God wants also Jonah to step up and take responsibility for the people of Nineveh. So now COVID-19 is with us and will not stop being with us. Now that we are living in an era where more and more viruses are seeping across the divide between the animal kingdom and our species. I have no interest in any suggested theological cause of COVID. I am not God, and I cannot plumb his mind. None of us can. But now it is here. I can react to it. And I'm suggesting that we need to wake up from a modern slumber. And we need to demand from our leaders that rather than fighting the fights of the past, they need to put more efforts into building a world that is not yet and that will sustain itself and therefore all of us. So Hashana Tova to you all. I want to wish you all health and strength to deal with these complicated times. You have been such a great support to me as your rabbi, for which I thank you so much. I know it has been hard for so many of you over the past few months, from illness to the adjustments of work location, homeschooling, issues of mental health in reaction to the pandemic, financial instability, and more. Change is never easy whenever it comes. But with a sense of community, I hope that has helped you, even just a little. And so again, on behalf of Elisheva and all my family, Hashana Tova.